Good morning and welcome. Thanks for joining us for this study of Advent and Christmas in El Salvador. And I believe Brian's going to expand that beyond El Salvador too and look at some other traditions around the world as well. God of Advent, we thank you for your coming. We ask that you would be with us now in this time as we prepare for your arrival. And God, we ask that you would open our hearts and our minds and our ears, that we would hear and see and know the words that you have for us this day. Amen. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Pastor Brian Rude down in El Salvador. And I will turn it over to you, Brian.
Gracias, Kendra. Feliz Año Nuevo a todos y todas. Happy New Year. Advent is the start of the new year for us in the liturgical church year, church calendar. And so here's our Advent wreath with one candle lit. And because we're in the middle of Advent 1 and 2, maybe we'll end up with lighting the second candle a bit early, but a few days ahead of Advent 2. So thanks for joining. Yeah, we've got an hour to think about Advent here, Advent there, Advent here, everywhere. I don't have a sermon prepared or a speech, just some videos to help us see and hear what goes on here in El Salvador, and hoping for your reflections and reactions and experiences as well. First of all, I'd like to ask you each to go into the chat and write one or two words that come to your mind when you think about Advent. Okay, yeah, we've got waiting, hope, anticipation, preparation, expectation, preparing, Christ's coming, special Advent music, getting ready. Certainly, all of that comes to mind, whether in El Salvador or Camp Kiriakis or Regina or Winnipeg or Victoria. I've asked some Salvadorans, actually some mostly who speak English, so they'll be able to tell us their experiences. And many of them have experienced Christmas in other than El Salvador. One in England, one in Sweden, one in Finland, and some in Canada and the US. So they'll be telling us some of their Advent and Christmas experiences too. For today, I haven't gotten any of their verbal participation, but Christian has a group of children, his children from Calderitas, the church where he is pastor and music director. So we're going to listen to a video of tape of them singing Advent music. And they come by way of Geneva because it's the Lutheran World Federation that has published a video of their singing in El Salvador, Calderitas. And I'll tell you a bit more about that. But let's first read the text from Sunday, past Sunday, first Sunday of Advent, Luke 21, 25 to 36.
There will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Then he told a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is already near.
So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly, I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all the things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Be on guard so that your hearts are not weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of this life, and that day does not catch you unexpectedly like a trap. For it will come upon all who live on the face of the whole earth. Be alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that will take place and to stand before the Son of Man.
Thank you. So, preparing, as many of you expressed, signs and wonders. I don't think anybody mentioned signs as an Advent theme. Signs in the heavens and the seas and so on. Any of you see the eclipse, the lunar eclipse a week or two ago?
I saw it
I was
half
able to-
covered.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I had talked with Gail all about it and then forgot about it and went to bed and didn't get up. So I missed it, but I look forward to it again in 600 years.
Right, right. Were any of you expecting the earth to end because of the eclipse? Or for Jesus to come on the clouds? Not so much. I was able to enjoy it for 2 hours on my roof with Tova, the cat, not my niece Tova, that Tova with a B. And 17 degrees, totally perfectly clear sky. It's very calm. It was a lovely evening. And I'm often awake from 2 till 4 anyway. So the lunar eclipse was a nice switch from YouTube or Netflix. So yeah, we caught it, but it wasn't an earth-ending event, but it was memorable anyway. Some folk have gathered in Dallas of late, awaiting the return of JFK, and I think they're still waiting, maybe some still in Dallas. We as Canadian Lutherans and Salvadoran Lutherans aren't so expectant of the final or the second coming, imminent coming of Jesus, although we are aware of it, but it's not like in the days after Jesus' resurrection and ascension that it would come any moment. Yesterday the skies did fall in on me. In my bedroom, here they call the ceiling tiles, they call them cielo falso, false heavens, false skies. And one fell on just over my head. It fell down on my bed. Actually, the mosquito net caught it. So just the dust filtered through, not the actual ceiling tile. It's about 1 meter long. So I might have thought the earth was ending at that point, but I wasn't there at the time. And the mosquito net saved me. So anyway, there are signs and symbols. I was at the beach over the weekend listening to the waves, and they're a bit stronger than usual, but nothing earth-ending. One of the themes that comes to my mind from a Salvadoran perspective, and I think more so maybe than in Canada, is that of the people of God waiting expectantly, not individually so much, although in Canada too, in the Lutheran Church, we do think of the people of God. Kyriakos certainly brings us together as the people of God to wait expectantly and to prepare ourselves, as we're doing this morning. So the people of God. So some of the videos, the stories and videos that I've gathered for today reflect that theme. The people of God, for me, from my first days here, bring to mind the Fe y Esperanza community, faith and hope community, which had been, before my arrival, had been a refugee community, displaced people from San Vicente, which is the volcano, which you see on many of my sunrise slides from my rooftop. I see that volcano, San Vicente, Chichotepec. And so many of the folk had been farmers, campesinos in that area, and had to flee during the War of the 80s. And so the Red Cross asked the Lutheran Church to find some property to receive them and set up a community. So hundreds of them gathered at Fe y Esperanza, which is about, it used to be an hour from San Salvador. Now, because of a new highway that's built around the volcano, it's only 10, 15 minutes, depending on traffic. So I was chaplain there for the first few years here, but by the time I got there, it had been converted to an orphanage and school. The refuge had moved to a different location where there was more space for agriculture and corn and beans and so on. But during the mid-'80s, it was a refuge. And now, decades later, some of the girls graduating at that time now they're in their about 50 years old, and some are grandmothers, bringing that community together again. And so we've formed the Fe y Esperanza Memorial Historical Association over the last 6 or 8 years. And so we bring folk together. And actually this Sunday, we'll have a gathering at Fe y Esperanza, and again on the 28th of December. So twice, once during Advent and once just after Christmas, on the day of the Holy Innocents, actually. When Herod slaughtered all the innocents, and Jesus fled with his mother and father, Mary and Joseph, to Egypt to be saved from Herod's slaughter of the innocents. So they are the people of God here for me. And we do have a video for you of some of those people, several videos actually, of those people of God. One is thanks to Christian, whom some of you may know because he visited Alberta, the Synod of Alberta, maybe, what year was that? 3 or 4 years ago? I can't remember exactly, and he gifted many of you with the crosses he paints. He is a gifted musician, but also a cross painter. And so some of those are now scattered around Alberta. But not only there, he's also given crosses to the Lutheran World Federation in Geneva, World Council of Churches in Geneva, and also the Vatican. The Pope and the Vatican have his crosses as well. So he's quite well known as a cross painter. He was a student of mine at the high school in my class on Christian formation, when I did a class on the Exodus as comparing the Salvadoran Exodus and flight to the Egyptian flight and exodus of the people of God from slavery in Egypt, comparing those two periods and realities. And so he was a student in my grade 10 class, I think. And he and some others were helping in 93 with gathering testimonies from the war years of disappeared people. And his one of my students' mothers was director of the Mothers of the Disappeared. So she and some others were gathering testimonies. And this other classmate was captured when he was on his way to gather testimonies and brutally murdered. And Christian at the funeral was pictured in the newspaper and threatened. So he had to leave. He fled to Sweden for some years. And so he learned Swedish, and he learned much of the culture and music and so on there. So he may share some experiences of Advent and Christmas in Sweden. But we do have his choir, his children's choir, in a video thanks to the Lutheran World Federation. Many of the Fe y Esperanza folk left in the 90s when the war ended, and some moved to Calderitas. We go there often to visit with some of the mothers especially, and not grandmothers, and they help us organize these reunions that we celebrate a couple times every year. So I've seen some of these kids around. I don't know any of the kids. I was at the dedication of the church building where they're singing about 2 years ago. Christian has gotten a bunch of funds together from the US, especially the ELCA, to build this lovely church. And he's formed this children's choir, and they're singing Advent hymns, which has been published by sent out by the Lutheran World Federation. So let's listen to Christian's choir, children's choir, singing Advent hymns in Calderita, San Vicente, near the volcano, and via Geneva, thanks to Geneva. Gracias a Cristian y a las niñas y a los niños de Calderita, San Vicente, cantando los himnos de Adviento. Thanks to Christian and the kids, the girls and boys from Calderitas in San Vicente, singing their Advent hymns for us. So this, the people of God, I've got a few other short videos. We met in at the end of November for two reasons. One, to plan this December 5th meeting coming up on Sunday, and also to plan for, or to develop their project. It's kind of a garden marketing project that they're developing. So there's one short video of their gardening. I didn't catch them working, but I caught their meeting when they're planning what to grow and maybe some chicken and eggs to sell, and then package them and deliver them around to folk who need, who could benefit from their market gardening. So we've got a couple of those videos, and then one of us having lunch there, and a couple of the meeting, and we're meeting in a very special space. It's the memorial space, which we've developed just over the last couple of years to commemorate some of those who have been lost in the war. So their names are on the wall. They're in Spanish, but I don't need to translate. I'll just explain them a bit. So you see some posters around and some photos and the names in columns on the wall, several hundred names of those who were killed in the war of the 80s, when the people were trying to regain their land and their independence and their livelihoods, and were slaughtered by the government forces, backed by the US government and military. So a very brutal time. Speaking of trauma, Pastor Fran led a sessions on trauma last month through these Camp Kiriakis sessions, and these people certainly know trauma. They've lived it through the 80s, but ever since then as well. They continue to live trauma, a great deal of violence and economic insecurity, unemployment, every kind of trauma. But they're still very, very connected to God, to one another, to the community. They're people of God, and they're connected to their past and their future. So here they are gathering and planning their market gardening project. So you can hear them and see some of the photos and posters that we have in this memorial space.
Vamos poniendo y después vamos como votando para ver cuál tendría como más votantes.
Sí, sin pena, ¿verdad? Sí, solo para tener unidad nosotros.
The next one is we're just having lunch and doing a bit of planning for the December 5th meeting, and then a quick one of the gardens that they're working on, that they're planting. Although they're just plants there, nobody was working when I was taking the video, but. Okay, so does that look like Advent at Camp Kiriakis?
I was just thinking about the snow around here right now. So.
It's a bit greener here. So yeah, they've got some great Advent projects going, and great bunch of folk to be with. That space is where we lived in the 80s, first as a refuge, then as an orphanage. At that time, there were no trees there. There was no shade, so it was not as welcoming as it is now. Those trees have grown quickly. Alexa should tell us a little about Mexico if she wants. She told me in Spanish. I don't know if she would want to in English, but anyway, lots of Mexican traditions to tell about. But anyone, please jump in and share a bit.
Well, I would try, probably, I don't know all the vocabulary, but pretty much in Mexico, we do posadas. That's just kind of like a little party, but you well, you walk with pretty much you can make it like Mary and Jose. They're like walking together and trying to like ask for hospitality. Like they're walking to the land. So and you go like going singing and just going with probably with the little donkey and for each house. And when you get to the last house, when you get the posada, the hospitality, pretty much you eat like Mexican food, ponche, you do a lot of piñatas. The piñata has like fruits and like a typical tradition fruit from for Christmas. So you're getting prepared, and also you can also pray. So you celebrating how Jesus was born, and you representing that. And of course, as all Latin Americans, you make a huge party. Um, and also like it's like you can do it as a business, as a church. It's just pretty much you do it as a community. This celebration, you can do it with friends, and it's like a huge thing because everyone is having a posadas, and it's just a really to getting prepared for Christmas, and you're really representing each moment that Mary and Jose passed for to get to the land. Pretty much they're born of Jesus. And after that, probably like in these 40 days, you go to like church and pray and things like that. And every Friday, you cannot eat red meat. So if you don't want to do that, because probably you're already vegetarian and you don't do it anyway, you start like doing other sacrifice, like I don't know, like help someone else or trying to do something good for another people, and pretty much you're getting prepared for the Jesus birth.
Alexa, do you sing when you do the posadas? I've got this hymn here. I'll just hum it and see if you recognize this melody. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da.
Yes, so we're singing like,
You
oh,
wanna
pido posada en el nombre del cielo. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, we do that. As I told Alexa, they used to do that on my street, coming by my house every week during Advent. But now they don't anymore. So the neighbors who organized that must have moved, or I don't know, but we lost that tradition here on my street, the posadas. But yeah, they sang that and came knocking on the door and looking for shelter, and every week during Advent, all through December. I miss that.
Yeah, it's really fun. You can pretty much find it. Probably not much in big cities, but like in every town, yeah, like a community, you're gonna find that.
Great, thanks, Alexa. Gracias. Anyone else have some interesting traditions, memories to share? Or theological reflections on preparation, expectation, getting ready for Jesus coming and Christmas and so on?
I guess Pastor Catherine was talking about the importance of the, rather than using the Advent wreath, but reflecting using a crash and slowly building that over the course of Advent as you come closer to the actual celebration, I guess.
One
Thank you.
of our little traditions I was just mentioning to Art in the group is reading the Advent reflections from On Eagle's Wings. which is kind of from the opposite end of the world compared to El Salvador, because it's very north oriented, but very very meaningful reflections, and they always have great art on the cover. And this year it's a family emerging from a very dark woods into a very bright light, which of course has some important symbolism for Advent and Christmas. So I thought I would just share that.
Thank you. And Pastor Catherine, how many Christmases did you spend in Peru? And maybe in Ghana too, and who knows where else? You've been around.
Well, probably 13 Advents in Peru, and maybe 3 in Ghana. Yes, I can't really remember Advent in Ghana, what we did, if we did anything much. Yes. And I came back from Canada one year and I taught them the song Toda la Tierra. I always forget what it is in English. It's in our book. And then one time they asked me to try and lead a little group of kids in one of the churches. And I asked them, well, what's your favorite song? And they said, Toda la Tierra. And I was very surprised. So then we were singing it. And I thought, their voices are kind of raw. And I thought, I'd like them to have a little clearer sound. So I said, well, just listen to me sing for a minute and do it my way. Or, see what it sounds like. Anyway, I sang, and then they all started singing, Toda la Tierra. And they were imitating my pronunciation rather than the tone. I just burst out laughing. And they still remember that story of me laughing away when they sang the pronunciation in my terrible Canadian pronunciation.
So what do you most miss about Advent or Christmas from Peru?
Well, it's very, very busy, with shopping on Christmas Eve and so on. And so then you try to go and have your service in the church, and people always come late because they've been out shopping. I remember the terrible traffic. And then, we always had a nice service, and then we'd have in Iquitos, we would always have a supper together, but that would always be rather late too, because people, they were so busy just before Christmas. And, but then in Lima, my neighbors always invited me for dinner. And that would be at midnight, everybody would go out and shout and bang pots and scream and let off fireworks. It was not a silent night at all. But then I would, at about 2 a.m., we would have this wonderful dinner with my neighbors. Unfortunately, both the couple died during COVID, but anyway, I used to always go there on Christmas Eve.
Well, it's almost time to wrap up. I just want to, I don't know if I should or not, but tell you my memories from last Advent. A year ago, we went Christmas shopping for a Christmas tree on November 30th with a friend. And the moment we got home, about 10 minutes after arriving at home, I got a phone call on my cell phone. And it was a death threat, a very explicit, detailed death threat. They knew everything about me and my housemates, and they warned me not to leave the house. And so I hung up and disconnected that number, and then they phoned me on my landline with the same message, don't leave the house. And I wasn't sure even if that meant not going out the front door or not going on my roof, like I could be target practice there. They sent photos of my car in the carport. They knew every detail about my housemates and myself. And I forgot to ask, what the expiry date on this was. Well, no, they said I had to send a housemate on foot to the Civic Plaza with $2,500 in cash in half an hour. If I didn't, that would be dire for me. So I spent December at home. I didn't leave the house. Except on one occasion in mid-December, my housemate, an intern doctor, physician, tested positive for COVID. So another couple housemates, we went for a test. On a Saturday morning, I risked going for a test. And the night the planets came together, Saturn and Jupiter, I think it was, we were toasting the planets on my rooftop. I got another phone call, and it was the Ministry of Health telling me to stay home because I tested positive for COVID. So I had a double reason to stay home for Christmas. And none of us ever had any symptoms. So we dabbled a bit in hypochondria, but never any symptoms. So I spent the entire month of December and well into the new year, actually, at home. I didn't leave the house. So yes, you mentioned the traffic. That's what I recall from Christmases past. But last year I didn't experience any traffic, any parking problems. I was just very, very peaceful at home. But and yesterday I was out in the traffic remembering that, oh yeah, we're in Christmas month. I should stay home again this year because we just spend the entire day parked in the street. You don't get anywhere in December here. So anyway, that was my dramatic Christmas from last year.
Did you ever find
anyway,
out who was threatening you?
No. The police did investigate some apparently, but I don't know what happened, what that was about, if it was. And since then, so many in the US and even in Canada are threatened for political and COVID reasons. And it's getting to be quite a widespread phenomenon here and there and everywhere. But anyway, I'm going to light the second candle for Advent and ask you to join me, and then we can continue with this chat next Thursday. So let's close with a prayer. God of Advent, God of waiting, God of preparation, God of expectation, God of hope. Thank you for bringing us together this Advent with the people of God from Kyriakos and from Mexico and El Salvador and Peru and many places throughout, or from Texas and across Canada. And keep us mindful of your promises to come, first at Christmas, each day in our lives, and to return at the end of time as well. Keep us expectant and in preparation for your coming into our lives and into our world. Give us hope. Keep us living in hope. In Jesus' name, amen.